Oh, hello, friends. I made it just in time. Totally in realtor space today. I'm sure that y'all are too. Put my glasses on so I can see who's over here and I can see my friends from Cobb County. And I'm sure that President Kennedy will be with us in just a minute. Da, 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 da. There she comes, Miss America.
Hello.
Right. I got slides. I got a president who's had her hair done since I saw her last. Is your hairdresser out of quarantine now?
She is, but
Oh, you're muted. You're still muted. Hang on a minute. Why are you muted? It says you're not muted.
Can you hear me?
There you are.
So she is, but my hair is a hot mess.
Oh, I thought it looked cute. Is this not on purpose? What is it supposed to be like?
Cuter.
Hey, you know, it's summertime. It's about 1000% humidity.
Yes.
So we just do whatever we can, what we have.
Yes.
Oh, I'm glad to see your face. Are you doing well?
I am. Thank you again for being here. Oh, this is my alarm to get on your call.
Like, well, here we are.
So it's 12 o'clock. You ready?
Yes, and look, Angela says that she thinks your hair is cute too. So thank you, Angela. We're both right. There comes Deborah too. See?
Thank you. So welcome, everyone. For those who don't know, my name is Janaea Kennedy, and I have the honor of serving as the president of the Cobb Association of Realtors for 2020, the year of pivoting. And so we just want to thank you all for joining us, and we want to thank Leigh for coming again to present a wealth of knowledge and information. We so appreciate you for just sharing everything that you have with us and for pouring into us. But first, I won't go through her whole formal bio because many of you are familiar with Leigh, and so for some of you, this is your fourth opportunity to hear from her. But I don't know if you all know that she's a professional singer, piano player. She's a chef extraordinaire, and she has lessons that she does on Facebook. And of course, we know she's a dynamic speaker, and she just loves the Realtor R. But I also want to publicly congratulate you for your recent appointment. She's going to be the 2020 VP of Advocacy for NAR. And so that is major and huge, and we're going to be seeing a lot more of Leigh. But this class, I just want to say thank you so much, because filling out surveys and evaluations are important. And what Leigh did was she went through our evaluations from her previous sessions and courses that she's taught throughout the states. And she created this class based on content or things that we as realtors say we want and need. And so this is going to be a phenomenal class, and I'm going to shut up so that you can start. So without further ado, everyone, please welcome Miss Leigh Brown.
Thank you.
And the crowd goes
nice. I don't think I can call myself professional because I don't get paid for any of that stuff yet. But just for the record, I am negotiating with Dixie Crystal Sugar to be a sponsor spokesperson for them. So I'm super excited that I might get free sugar for a while. So if you do like to cook, I love it. So I've said to y'all before, you need to be given extra love and appreciation to your president, because when Janaea signed up to serve, it was a lot of years ago, and she's put in the time and the energy to make the organization better. And she didn't expect this year, but I would just say that in light of everything that's happened this year and all the different weird spaces that we're in, I'm pretty sure you got the best possible president ever. So Janaea, thank you for your leadership anyway, but especially thank you for leading with grace and class and patience in I hate to say it, but you know, I have to say it in this unprecedented time because for real, I'm tired of hearing that, but it's true. So if we've not met before, friends, I am from Concord, North Carolina. And actually my background today is a half a block from my office, which is, if I can figure out how to point, there we go, is a half a block this way. And I'm in it right now because I couldn't take the noise in my house anymore. Y'all, my family reunion is this weekend at my house. So you should say a prayer for me because that's going to be a lot of excitement and drama. And when we're thinking about how we make things happen and where we make things happen, we've learned during this time that we have choices we get to make in life, right? And the choices that we're making have to do with the way that we perceive our businesses. And this sounds kind of mushy gushy, and I'm not known for being mushy, right? So I'm a 20-year realtor. My reputation is as a straight shooter. And sometimes I say things out loud nobody else will say. And that's when you're Southern, you can get away with things, just for the record, friends. But I will tell you that we have to look at things differently right now. And I think we have to consider things differently right now because no matter who you're talking to with buyers and sellers, they're all in some really weird spaces, whether it's based on coronavirus, whether it's based on their business being closed down, unemployment, whether it's based on racism and Black Lives Matter and then protests and violence. And like everybody's in a insane, weird space right now. So this bleeds over into your real estate business because even while things are insane in the world, houses, condos, land, businesses, buildings, they're all bought and sold. So the question becomes, how do we make ourselves better every day during any market condition, but especially in this one, which I may have come up with this since the first time I was with y'all, because y'all were like early to the stage to get something set up for your members, because Barry is all about scheduling things. Janae is all about making things happen. So y'all are very advanced. But I call this the great unknown because frankly, we have no idea what's on the other side of this pandemic. All we know is that we have to put our big, and excuse me, boys, but we got to put our big girl panties on and deal with things. So y'all asked for some scripts and dialogues and ideas for buyers and sellers and give us some down and dirty. So what I'm going to give y'all today is what I use every day. And full disclosure, because I can't travel right now to speak, I have been doing more buyers than I've done in about 17 years. And I remember now why I don't work with buyers, but I remember now all the skills that are necessary. So just to remind you here that when you're in front of a screen, there's not an excuse to not be the best version of yourself. And a lot of us in this Zoom era have gotten a little lazy. And I say this with love because y'all know that it's true. How many of y'all have seen a post on Facebook or Instagram of somebody in their pajama pants and they're barely showered and they're in front of a Zoom, or you've seen the Zoom call with all the little people in it and you're watching what's happening in the one square? And if you're older enough like me, you remember Hollywood Squares, and this is not when you want to be center square. But if you look at this gentleman here, he might have pajama pants on, but he put on his button-down shirt and his jacket. He's got his cup of coffee. Most importantly, what's on his face? His smile. Think about all of the Zoom calls you've been on. And it's not just with realtors, it's with buyers and sellers right now, and it's with prospects and with family members. What version of you are they seeing? Because to succeed, y'all, they need to see the best version of you. You're selling yourself. You are the product you're selling, not the house. They can get the house from anybody, not the loan. They can get a loan from anybody. Home warranty, thousands of companies. Why did they come to you? You are the product. So if you look at him, how many of y'all waved back at him like automatically? You're like, oh, hey, because, you know, in the South, we just say hey to everybody and we wave because you saw the smile, you saw the eye contact, and you saw the professionalism. So that's where I want you to go as we think about implementing ideas. And so when the phone rings, this is the first question out of my mouth. And if you've heard me teach before, y'all already knew this. Although if you're like everybody else I've ever taught, 2 of you implemented it and the rest of y'all said, I'll get around to it. So today we're going to get around to it. That phone rings and you say, good afternoon, Leigh Brown with One Community Real Estate, because every time y'all answer the phone, if you want to grow your business, first name, last name, company affiliation. If you can't say your company affiliation, then frankly, you probably need to change companies because there is something wrong right with you if you can't say your company's name out loud. So consider that. And I will tell you, during this pandemic time, I have had a lot of requests for information for people who say, should I, can I, how do I change brokerages? Because a challenging time of wild things going on exposes what kind of broker you have. Do they listen to you value you, care about you, push you, help you focus, that's going to come out. So anyway, you should be proud of that broker. So first name, last name, company affiliation. Hey, this is Leigh Brown with One Community Real Estate. And on the other end, they say, oh yeah, I saw you got this house listed in Davidson today. And how much is it? Because I don't know why when they're on 47 apps, they know how much it is. They still ask you how much it is. And your temptation is to go old school, because old school sales training says, answer and ask, answer and ask. You always do it this way. The consumer knows that we do that. And so when you're inauthentic about it and you're just answering and asking, like, well, it's $599.9. Is that the price range you were thinking about? Yes, see, y'all were trained that way too. To lure them in the conversation, the consumer doesn't want to be lured in, right? And so if he says, well, how much is it? My answer is this one on the screen right here. May I ask you a few questions? Now, it's very direct, right? But it's may. So you're asking in a nice way. The reason you want to go here is because you're a professional, right? How many of y'all perceive yourselves to be a professional realtor? You are not just any realtor. In fact, I had this conversation yesterday with somebody who said, yes, but realtors who wear the R have the code of ethics and they're professional. I'm like, well, they're supposed to. And we know that not everybody is created equal, right? Well, actually, I take that back. They're created equal, but they don't behave equally. How about that? And so he said, all I have to do is tell people I'm a realtor, and now they know I'm a professional. I said, well, you could also tell me you're a hairdresser, and I ain't coming to see you if I don't know exactly who you are as a realtor. As a hairdresser, if I don't know how professional you are, if I don't know that you're going to make me look expensive. Because there's a difference in hairdressers, and I don't mean this to be ugly, but if you're going to Supercuts, that is not the same experience as going to my very sweet man that I go to see, who is called the Blonde Whisperer because he can cover the gray like a daggum magician, and I ain't paying for anything else because I pay a lot for him because I value his expertise. So when you start thinking about yourself, you're like, well, I am a realtor, but I am that kind of realtor. I'm an amazing realtor. I'm a professional problem solver. Y'all remember that? So when you're the professional problem solver realtor, you need to think about yourself differently. That phone rings. You don't have to do what everybody else does. Every other realtor's like, hey, you want a showing? Personal private showing. I'll sneak you in and send you virtual. And they're swarming on him. No, you're the one that says, may I ask you a few questions? Now, y'all, some buyers will say, no, you are the agent and you can show me that house. And if you don't, I will find somebody who will, and they'll get the big payday. And you're realtors who are non-confrontational, and you generally are lovers of people. And so y'all wind up saying, okay, fine, I'll just show it, because you get beaten into submission by that jerk. And y'all know that anybody that speaks to you that way is never buying a house. Anybody that's ugly to you out of the gate is going to wear your nerves completely slap out. And so if you're in the cheerful professional mood, so remember, look at our man here. You're in this mood when you answer the phone, right? Always answer the phone with that smile on your face. How do I do that? My mirror is right here beside my desk. I always look in the mirror when I answer the phone. So I'm like, oh, hey, how are you? And may I ask you a few questions? Most people say yes. Now, as soon as he says that, you know what I can ask him? Anything. I can find out, why are y'all moving? What's your time frame? What drew you to this house? Are y'all looking for a ranch in particular, or was it the trees? Or tell me a little bit, and you can start getting the skinny. And y'all, as you are your professional self, one of the tools that will help you be that most professional self as you're asking questions is using intake sheets. Now, I will tell you something about my intake sheets. This stuff's not rocket science for some of y'all. I know I'm repeating myself for what you've heard me teach in the past, but there's a reason I teach it all the time. Because did y'all know 71% of realtors were not in the business during the Great Recession? So most realtors weren't around for the last unknown disruptive market. And so this might be new to you. It might be a refresher, but hopefully you'll think about it differently, because I'm going to tell y'all a little secret about these intake sheets. So anyway, I have these printed. They're all over my office. In fact, well, my girl cleaned up my pile because she told me I was a wreck. My yellow ones are for sellers. We'll talk about that in a second. And the blue ones are for buyers. And I'm asking the same questions every single time. Because do y'all remember the basic tenet of fair housing? Oh, you do. What you do for one, you do for all. And that should be everything in your business, not just which houses you show. It's the professional realtor they encounter from day one. So when he says, yes, I can ask him some questions, the first thing up here at the top is going to be, well, what caused you to call me today? And I always ask that because y'all, sometimes it's the house they ran into, and sometimes they've been on your Instagram channel, and sometimes it was their friend who watches your videos who sent them over to your page, and then they happen to see you had a listing. And so if you ask enough questions, you'll figure it out. Because if they just say, I found you online, they didn't answer. And so you don't know where to dial in, and you have to know where to dial in to build your business. You'll also find, and by the way, this is a download. I'm going to give y'all this in a DOC format so you can take off my logo and put yours on there. And I'll point out one more thing to you as well. The reason I call it an intake sheet instead of a lead sheet is we're working very hard to stop calling our future and present neighbors leads. Although I see I missed one in my top block, see, because we're always adapting this thing as a living document. When you think about somebody as a lead, you're less likely to think about them as a neighbor. And when you stop thinking about them as neighbors, you stop loving all of them as much. And that's what Jesus told us, is love your neighbor. And so anyway, think about these as neighbors today, tomorrow, in the future. It changes your perspective and how you listen. And when you start hearing compassion and you start hearing nervousness and stress and excitement, you can start directing the questions differently. And so of course you're going to ask their contact information. The one that's in red is super important because you need to know this, but I'll tell you a secret. There's a better way to ask it than the one that's on my sheet. And that's because I want to reward those of y'all that showed up. And so if you send this over to a realtor friend, that's awesome of you, but you're getting a perk. And so most of us ask this, how do you prefer to be contacted? What's your method? Call, text, email, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Marco Polo. That's my newest thing I've gotten into because my maid of honor and best friend since the first grade got on Marco Polo. So that's where we've been talking. That's my gift of coronavirus. And agents are over there too. Did y'all know Jeff Kahn, who is a realtor in Lubbock, Texas, has gotten $1 million worth of business out of Marco Polo? And if somebody will remind me in the chat block, I will tell you how he did that when we get towards the end. But anyway, the better way to ask this question, instead of how do you prefer to be contacted, is how do I get a hold of you when I need you? The most important part is when I need you. And here's why. Each one of y'all has changed your communication methods in the last 5 to 7 years because everything has sped up and moved almost exclusively to smartphones. Well, if you have teenagers or aging parents or anybody in your life who's generationally different than you have a pathway to get to them now. And this is the pathway. If I want to talk to my daughter who's 15 on the phone, I have to text her and say, Cora, when I call, pick up the phone, because if I do not, she will not pick up the phone. Well, when I tell her to, she does. Your clients have that same setup. And when you say, when I need you, before they tell you the pathway, they're going to actually say to you, well, when do you need me? Well, with a buyer prospect call, that's pretty simple. It's, look, our market is kind of crazy right now. And when you're ready to buy a house, I'm not talking about the educational process. And if it's 3 months from now, that's cool too. I'm just saying, on the day that you and I go into a house and you're like, boom, it's the one, you're going to be in that space of buying, which means that when you lose the first one in multiple offers, we'll start watching when a house comes up that fits your needs. We have to clear our decks and go. There is no time to wait. So if I find a house that I think is remotely close, I'm going to need to find you, because if we wait, we'll miss it. Now, I won't do that until you're in the space where you're ready to buy, because I don't want to be a pest. Do y'all see how impactful that is? And I'm sure you also caught my little sneaky script in there where I say, when we lose the first one in multiple offers, because I'm setting the stage from the beginning of every buyer consultation right now, y'all, you're probably going to lose a house. And in fact, if they're first timers and if I detect a C personality, I warn them they're going to lose 3 or 4 before they grab one. And that means that if you catch a house on round 2 or even round 1, they feel like major winners. We've got to do a better prep job, and it doesn't come at the time of offer, it comes now. And so you're going to get the text me and then call me and then text me. Nobody prefers email. You know that, right? Unless they're like, 55 and they're sitting at home, I guess. I don't know who prefers email. I hate it myself. So speaking of email, because everybody hates it anymore and they're covered up in it, I'll remind you that we all have a spam account. You know your spam account, right? The one you use for coupons and the one that you sign up for sweepstakes on, and you go to the grocery store, that's the one your Vic list comes to from Harris Teeter. And you don't go to that email unless you need something. That's the email the consumer gives us, because they don't want to get your market updates and your days on market and the general crap that you send out. And so when I ask for the email address, I'm like, tell me which email address you actually check. And y'all, they giggle. They're like, okay, I use XYZ at bankofamerica.com. And I'll say, listen, I can tell that's a work email because you can always tell when it's a work email. I won't blow you up, but if I need something that needs to be in front of you in writing, like a PDF or something, I'll text you and then send it. Because remember, in a world of scammers and attachments that are bad, one of the gifts you can give to people is to tell them when you have sent them an email. And oh, by the way, as an agent, I love it when another agent texts me or calls me and says, check your email. There's an offer in case it went to spam. Because how many of y'all have had an offer go to spam, but the agent never called you, never texted you, you had zero idea it was coming? Oh, law, I forgot that I had my ringer turned on my landline. That's how old I am. I have a landline. Look, you want me to show y'all? It's got a cord on it too. Anyway, there we go. Now, back to where we are. And then I'm going to ask this buyer, do you currently own? Yes or no, right? No. Cool. Y'all renting? Yes. Well, when's your lease up? Next fall. Okay. So let's talk about the time frame here. You want them to move next fall? Or y'all wanting to move early and break your lease? Talk to me a little bit. That's probably my favorite phrase and favorite script. Talk to me a little bit. It's very low key instead of, well, tell me about that. And we're Southern, right? So we're supposed to be a little bit more relaxed. So talk to me a little bit. Tell me about that. And if they want to break a lease, now you know how to plan financially, you know how to plan time frame. But more importantly, if they own a house, I always ask them, so do you have to sell it? And I always ask it like that because y'all, there are people that don't want to sell it. And they're like, oh, I don't have to. No, kind of want to. I'm like, well, tell me about that. Right? See, sneaks back in again. And then I want to know where they're located. And this is my favorite thing to ask them. If their house is not on the market and they need a listing agent, and I'll do the same thing on the seller side, do you need me to help you find an agent who knows what they're doing? I never ask, do you need a professional realtor? Do you need an agent? Because I'm always going to look in a marketplace for somebody who has their CRS designation and is a major investor with RPAC. And so at that point, I could say, well, they say, yeah, I don't know where to find an agent. You're like, that's cool. I know somebody who is completely dug into the community and a rock star when it comes to getting better about the business. Her name's Janaea Kennedy. And so I'm going to connect you guys if you'd like. And they're like, oh, yeah. How do we sell each other? Think about the referral business. It's going to be way more effective if you can demonstrate that somebody knows what they're doing by education and by the knowledge that comes from political advocacy instead of the buddy that got tagged 4 times on Facebook. And by the way, the reason I say who knows what the heck they're doing, there's plenty of realtors out there that have the best of intentions but are not properly trained yet. We'll just say yet because they need to come to some more classes. So anyway, here's the next question. It's a good trip line. Are you working with an agent is what most realtors say. Well, I learned from my friend Heidi Hines a long time ago. She's actually a local realtor and she's one of those good sharing people. Heidi says, who's your agent? Because if you catch them off guard, they'll spit it out. They'll be like, oh, my brother. Because they've been told, right, by some agents, don't tell that agent you have somebody, get them to do all the work and then I'll write it up. And so I'm like, who's your agent? And if they don't have one, they're like, I don't have one. Do I need one? And you're like, it's cool. I just didn't want to step on any toes. So yeah, then I keep going from that point. But you always want to uncover agency sooner. And if they have an agent, they're like, yeah, it's my sister-in-law. That's fantastic. The house you called about, the MLS number is this. And you tell her to call me and I will help out. I always try to make it easier. So those are some of your most important questions when you're asking questions of an incoming buyer. And let me show you the most important one as you scroll down the page. And my slides might be out of order here because y'all are the first time I've put all this into one slide deck instead of scattered amongst others. And so right here, you'll see, will you be paying cash or will you need to obtain financing? Y'all know that one of the conversations we're having in the world right now is about the assumptions that we make about people. Right, and we should not be assuming things because the only person whose shoes you've walked in is yours. And so when you're a realtor, you think about what that does to your business. There's a lot of realtors that have hamstrung themselves by posting things on social media that says, I only work with pre-approved buyers. Oh, is that so? Because Leigh Brown loves working with a cash buyer. That's 1/3 of the market, y'all. Nationally, 1/3 of the market is cash deals. So if you're just telling people, I only work with pre-approved buyers, you told the cash market, I don't do cash. Oh, now y'all are thinking, oh shit, Leigh, I've got to go back and change that. Oh, and I'm not supposed to cuss because, you know, your president's classy and stuff, but that's all right. I'll put a nickel in the RPAC jar for it. But anyway, when you think about this, you bring cash first because you've all met a cash buyer who's proud. They saved up. They've got the cash. Their mama gave it to them or they worked hard, whatever the story is, they're paying cash. And so when you ask about that first, the cash buyer says, I'm paying cash. Well, now you go down this line to exactly what you need for proof of funds. The financing buyers are like, I don't have any cash. Of course I'm getting a loan. I'm looking for like USDA 100%. What you got? And that is going to make them feel good that you thought they had cash. Y'all, we're in a world that needs to feel better. So how do you do that? Little things like this. The reason on my sheet it's completely written out, that is a non-negotiable in my office. Every agent better ask that question the exact same way. The other ones, they can kind of get their own style going, but not on that one. Now, I'll point one thing out to you on financing is that for many of us, we're dealing with buyers that plan to get a mortgage sometime. And when do people like to get pre-approved, y'all? Like after they find a house, right? Because they heard it's going to take their credit down or they're kind of scared, they're kind of nervous. You've walked them through all the reasons why. And this, by the way, is one of those thank you coronavirus moments, because at this point, none of us want to hang out with somebody who's not pre-approved in person, carry them into somebody's house when you don't know if they can buy. The sellers certainly don't want them in the house. And so I'm pretty sure that this is going to become a standard, and thank you for helping us get there, coronavirus. So anyway, what we usually do is give our 3 favorite lenders to every buyer. Here's my 3 lenders. Call them. Let me know how it works out. They're all good, trustworthy people. And your buyer doesn't call them because they wrote it down and shoved it over here because they had no sense of urgency. Well, I changed this a couple of years ago. So before I tell y'all what I'm doing, I'm just going to remind you, you've got to talk to your lenders before you do this. Okay. So always talk to your lenders first. What I say to this buyer now, at this point, we've been on the phone for like 15 minutes, and I say, Phyllis, because Phyllis Graham's over here texting me. I love that woman. So, hey, Phyllis, I need to know if you'll do me a quick favor. And what's she going to say? She'll say yes, right? Because we've been talking now for a few minutes, and people are always curious what that favor would be. And I say, listen, I'm going to have my 3 favorite lenders reach out to you, and I need you to tell me who calls you first. I also need to know, and this is very important, if any of them sound squirrely, because it's very hard to get on my list. But I'm going to tell you what, it is easy to get kicked off of it, and I need to know. And so what happens, friends, is that I send that email with the buyer's name and phone number to all 3 lenders in open copy. They all know, they're all on it. And I'm like, this is my prospect. Give them a shout. Let me know what we're dealing with. And then they always copy me if I gave an email. I get a quick update. And then your buyer answers the phone, because why? They're looking to see who's squirrely. It's fascinating to me. Now, hopefully none of mine are right now, but I did find out at one point this buyer said, I did not like X. And I said, tell me about that. And she said, he felt icky and gross. And then I went to his website and his headshot was just the worst. Have you seen his headshot? I said, actually, no, I hadn't been to his website. And I looked, and y'all, he was using a picture of Ron Burgundy from Anchorman as his headshot. And I said, you have got to be kidding me. And she said, he sounded exactly like he would have been a Ron Burgundy. And I said, girl, he is off my list. And she's like, yeah, okay. And I said, I said, refresh your screen, because while she did that, I was logged into my site. Boom, delete, boom. And she's like, holy smokes, he's gone. I'm like, yes, honey. I said, I don't put up with that mess. I said, so the other 2 can take great care of you. I'm going to have to go interview another one. But y'all, what happens is your buyers are now talking to your lenders. Your lenders know they're competing. And frankly, the other benefit, all of us that are pros that are right now, you're probably like me, you are not having enough hours in the day because we're making up for some lost time, and we're in a low interest rate environment, low inventory. It's wild. And so you don't get a day off, and then you want one. Well, your lenders need a day off too, because they want one. And we tend to call them at 10 o'clock on Sunday morning and need them to clear the decks and pre-approve somebody. Well, what if that's your lender's day off? Well, this way, if you're giving all 3 names to every prospect, your one can have a day off because the buyer got to talk to 2 of them. And then the buyer doesn't feel neglected. The one who needed a day off says, all right, one got away, no big whoop. It's really good. So just think about it that way. It's a different way to approach it. And your lenders like actually knowing how many at-bats they get as well. Now, on the seller intake sheet, I'm going to jump over here to a couple of important questions. Of course, a lot of stuff is the same either way. Hey, Leigh, we want to sell our house. Great. May I ask you a few questions? By the way, sellers always say yes. They expect to get quizzed. It's buyers that are a little surprised because every other realtor just wanted to set up a showing appointment. And so on my seller intake sheet, you'll see that you also have, your best way to be contacted when I need you. But the funny part on sellers is that they'll say, well, when do you need me? And I will say, look, I'm going to tell you something. Every seller who's ever existed calls me 487 times on the first day it goes on the market, texting and calling. Every day you haven't sold. What are they doing in my house? What's the feedback? What's the showings? What's the marketing? What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? And you are all over me. And then I get an offer and I try to find you and you fell into the Bermuda Triangle of sellers and I can't raise you up to save my life. Have y'all experienced that too? Beats all I've ever seen. You're like, where'd they go? Where they just called me like 10 minutes ago. Now I can't find them. And so I'm like, if you screen me, we're dead. And if you turn down a showing, we're dead. And that's really important right now because you do have some sellers that are out of the market because they're not ready yet, right? And that's okay. They have their own fears and their own underlying conditions with COVID and everything else. So give them some space, but tell them if you're going to turn down showings because you don't want a buyer in there, then how about we don't list it until you're ready? Because y'all know that's the fastest way to sink a listing is to not let anybody into it. Now, the next thing on here is, I love to trip this one up. Now, is the property address the same as your mailing address? Now, what I'm looking for here is the property, does it happen to be a vacant investment property? Is it an occupied investment property? What am I dealing with there? Because I don't like occupied investments. I like vacant investments. Amen and hallelujah. I'm also looking for divorces because divorces don't like to tell you until the last minute because they're afraid you're going to play favorites. And when I ask, is the property address the same as your mailing address? That's when it usually comes of that asshole left and took the TV. I'm like, okay, so where would we find him? Okay, let me just jot that. All right. And what I'm going to do there is I'm immediately going to change gears. Because if you spot something that changes your questions, you have to adapt. They're still the same questions every time, but the way that you approach it is different. Because now I'm going to tell her, because I can feel her anger and her frustration. I say, you should know that whenever I'm dealing with people that are in emotional, financial, relationship, any kind of distress, everything's confidential. You're not going to hear a peep from me on the social media about this. And we're going to do everything by Zoom so that everybody's on the same page. And if I meet with him, I'll send you a recording. And if they meet with you, I'll send him a recording so we can be fair and easy. And I want her to know that quickly. Everybody else is going to be all about the house and the money and the money and the house. But a divorced person is all about how fast can you make this go away? And the sooner you find that out, the sooner you can adapt your presentation and really take care of what your neighbor needs there. So you'll also see I've got the where are you moving and when do you need to be there so that I can ask them, do you need an agent who knows what they're doing? And then I can lead into that process again. And I'm also asking things like, what's the scoop on your house? The reason I ask beds and baths, and I've run into some agents now, they're like, I'll find out when I get there, or I have an old MLS, or I have a tax card. I need the seller to tell me so I can cross-check with MLS and tax cards and start finding out, am I dealing with old permits or any of that stuff? And then I'm going to ask them this question, and y'all, it's hard to ask, but I'm going to challenge you that this changes every listing forever. If you've ever lost a listing because the seller said to you, well, tell me what you do to the house, and you said, great, and you spent an hour and gave her a laundry list, and she's nodding the whole time. She's on it. She's got it. She's with you. You sat down at the table. You went over numbers. You're holding hands. Y'all are like peas and carrots. You've connected. Y'all know each other. And then you give her a little time and you leave. And 2 days later, you call back and you say, hey, I just want to see where we are. Are you ready to go forward? And she says, no, I am using this agent over here because he liked my house. Right? You've all had this scenario. They asked you to be honest. They asked for your list. You used your best bedside manner, and you still got kicked to the curb. Well, I figured out it's because a seller, no matter what the house looks like, when they ask you, they're kind of hoping you're going to say, it doesn't need anything, pumpkin. This house is amazing. And y'all know we don't get to walk into those houses very often. It's very rare to find a 10 out of the gate unless it's a new construction model. And so what I've learned to do is let the seller tell me what they already know. Because what channel have they been watching for a solid year? HGTV, they know, neutral, pop a color, one plant. They've heard all that. And so I'm going to ask them right here where it says rate your house on a scale of 1 to 10. Here's the secret sauce. This is the secret on the seller sheet. And if I had done this sooner than 5 years ago, y'all I'd have made a lot more money and sold more houses and real estate. But when I figured it out and flipped the script, changed everything. So here's what happens. I'm going to say to that seller, so put your buyer's shoes on for a second. People going to buy your house. Just put their shoes on. Now, they're going to walk in your house and rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. Now, before you give me a number, let me define that for you. A 1 is pretty rough. It's going to have pee in the carpet, busted out windows. I mean, we might affectionately call it a hot mess. That house needs some love. And it's going to sell because it'll be cheap. And then we have 10s. I love 10s. I love a 10. A 10 has the latest in flooring, the latest in countertops. It's got the right color on the wall, which, by the way, is Sea Salt by Sherwin-Williams with a special white trim. Can't beat it. It's got professional staging throughout. They've got a little bit of soft music playing in the background. You have got 1 vanilla scented Glade plug-in. Did you hear me? You've got 1. You have got a sodded yard. It's fenced. And for every single showing, they rented a 10-year-old and sent him down the sidewalk on his bicycle. That's a 10. Now, where do you fall on that scale? The crazy thing is, friends, before I asked this question, almost every seller was like, I'm a 9, 9.5, maybe a 10. They all think they're great because they love it, but they know. When I started visibly and visually using the words to create something they could identify with, they realized they're not a 10 because 10s are new construction models and they're perfect. And 1s, most of your public has never seen a 1. You and I have seen it because we've been in those houses, those tear downs, those remodels, those investment houses, and they're rough. But the public doesn't see that. So use your realtor background and your skills to define the scale. And what you'll find is that for me, most of my seller suspects land right in the 7 range. And then if any of y'all ever sold Mary Kay before, you know the next question, right? By the way, if you've never read the memoirs and biographies on Mary Kay Ash, that's one of the most brilliant entrepreneurs to ever live. And she's elevated more women than anybody else who probably ever lived. But anyway, Mary Kay invented the script that works. They said, I'm a 7. Mary Kay would say, so what's it going to take for you to be a 10? And your seller's going to say, well, we were wondering if we should change the rugs. And what's the answer, y'all? It's always yes. We wondered if we should pull this wallpaper out of the dining room. All right. We've got popcorn ceilings. We wonder if we should get rid of that. Okay. We haven't used the hall bath since the children moved out. We think that toilet's leaking. Should we fix it? Okay. And we adopted 2 Great Danes and they tore up the backyard. Should we fix the yard? You're like, all right. So we got yard, toilet, wallpaper, popcorn, and the rugs. Okay, so if we do all of that, are you a 10? Yes, I'm a 10. All right, cool. I got a guy. Because one of the top things people want from you when you're their realtor, they want that special magic vendor list because they know that you are amazing and that you're the yellow pages of the business. You know somebody everywhere. And if you're then hearing what they know and you're providing the solution, then you never took their house apart. You didn't tell her it needed to be done. You just solved it. Y'all see how crazy that is? It takes your conversation a little bit longer. And for some of you, I can tell that you are the classy and delicate souls who would never say pee in the carpet for the number 1 house. I'm going to challenge you to find something that visible. Maybe you say it's a house that's been infested with black mold all the way grown from the crawl space to the rooftops. You have to be visual because they've never seen one. Draw a very bleak scale so they can land in there. Now, let's see what else I want to tell y'all about. Oh, the red one down here. Whoa, this is the one that unlocks the secret sauce to your presentation. Because for a lot of realtors, you go to the listing, and this is the same thing on Zoom. You've got your presentation. Here's what we do. Boom, boom, boom. I have my comps. Here they are, 3 of them. Boom, boom, boom. And it's pretty much the same presentation for everybody, different conversation, right? If you're honest, you admit that you don't super personalize the presentation. This lets you do it though, and that wins you some serious business, y'all. Because while you're on the phone, you're going to say to this person, so as you're interviewing realtors, what are the 3 things you're looking for in the one you select? And now the tricky part is for you to sit there quietly and shut up because you're going to want to say, is it communication? Is it marketing? Is it negotiation? Is it this? Is it this? Let them talk. And they're going to say, nobody's asked me that. Well, I mean, I want this, I want this, I want this. what they tell you tells you how to do the presentation. So that divorcing person's going to say it needs to go fast, and it needs to go quickly, and it needs to go tomorrow. And you say, all right, so speed of sale, got it. How are you going to shift that presentation now? Because we all know that houses price in a range, right? Well, the person who wants it gone now, they don't want the top of the range usually because they know better. They're like, screw that. I'm going to land right here. We're getting out of here. Always remember that people have different goals in mind than what you think their goals should be. Realtors have this tendency to believe all people want top dollar for their houses. Friends, they don't. There are some people that will sacrifice money to get time. Don't forget that. So this is what lets you dial into that part of the presentation. Now, what if they say, I want marketing? You've got to ask a follow-up question here. So what does marketing mean to you? And the reason I want to ask that question, so tell me what samples to bring to the presentation. And even if it's on Zoom, right, I'm still showing samples by PDF. If I'm talking to somebody who's on a landline and is 1,000 years old, because that's my favorite client group, they're going to say, marketing, I want to know if my house will be in the newspaper. And you know what I say to that person? I say, yes, ma'am, it will. Because since I work with a lot of elderly people, I do advertise in the paper. I get business from that because it comes from that group. And by the way, the best place for position is next to the obituaries. I'm just saying. And so they want it there because that's what they're accustomed to. And realtors love to fuss about this. Leigh, you don't sell houses from the paper. You do if you know your market segment. Now, if it's a millennial, if I ask them what marketing means to you, they're probably going to say video and social media. Great. I have answers for that too. But again, this is going to tell you how to communicate with them in the way that they want to deliver what they're looking for. Changes everything about your business. And I'll just remind you here, because I forgot to earlier, some agents are very resistant to the script and dialogue part because I don't want to sound canned. Y'all can probably already see I don't sound canned because if you say something enough, it's just part of your language. It's just that you already know what to say before you're confronted with a challenge, and people are cool that way. So I'm just going to remind you, number one question for buyers, will you be paying cash or will you need to obtain financing? And ask it just that way. Tell your team members, ask it just that way. Let's be so professional. Now, with the sellers, I'm going to add in another little script here because the markets are weird right now. We're hot right now. I'm sure y'all are the same way. I listed a house this morning. The showings immediately flowed in. We know it'll be gone by the time the weekend's over. But what we're facing in future casting is somewhere in the next 6 to 18 months, we're probably going to see some liquidity issues in the mortgage market, which is possibly going to change some of the outcomes for buyers and sellers. So knowing that markets are fluid and cyclical, and we know real estate changes, you always ask a seller this. So I'm going to put you on the market, and our goal is to get it sold, and everything looks like it's going to sell right away. But let me ask you a question because I have to. If the house doesn't sell, what does that mean to you? Now, the reason I want to ask that is I need to know if there's a time frame involved, and sellers don't like to give you a time frame. So instead of asking, well, when would you like the house to sell and what's your goal? They don't really answer that honestly. Like, so it looks like it should go ahead and sell. If it doesn't, what's that mean to you? And they say, well, what does that mean? I say, well, market conditions can change overnight. It happened on 9/11. It happened with coronavirus when suddenly we were stuck at home for a short time and we had this weird stuff going on. So I'm just asking, if it doesn't sell because things change, can you weather the storm, or do we need to cut the price, or what's the skinny? Let them talk to you a little bit. It's kind of amazing. And then I just got to remind you as well, I'm giving y'all some specific things for incoming and buyers and sellers. There's a real powerful script that you could do with your contacts in your telephone, and that's to call somebody and say, hey, how are you? I call my brother every morning. He's a city fireman in Charlotte, and he's obviously in a much more dangerous profession today than he was a couple of weeks ago. And so he's my first phone call every day. Hey, how you doing? He's like, I ain't working today. I'm good. He says, I'm not working overtime right now, but I want to check on him because he's my brother, right? And I love him. And then I usually, after I call somebody I love, I'll call a suspect or a past client or somebody that I've got in my phone. But this is not to ever, ever, ever. Would y'all please never say again, the market's moving. Who do you know that's moving? And would you also please stop saying, who do you know that needs to buy or sell? Because here's the reality. If you called and said, hey, this is Leigh Brown with One Community Real Estate. How are you? Then they already know you're in real estate. And they're like, man, fine. How are you? I'm like, you saw your name in my phone. I thought I'd call and say, hey, just checking in. I am really low key about this because I don't like to make outbound phone calls. I have call reluctance like you, and I never want to sound icky. And so because of coronavirus, we have so much opportunity for this because people are starved for something to do. They're starved for interaction. And or to give you the scale of 1 to 10. Oh, I was looking for, did I not put my picture in here? I didn't. No, there she is. Dagnabbit, I forgot to put a picture in here. You have to imagine it in your head. Actually, it was in that third slide deck from the other section with the 5 friends at the coffee house table. As you're calling people right now, since your area is mostly reopened in some way, shape, or form, when you've got somebody on the phone, why not ask them if you're comfortable with it, you want to meet me for a cup of hot tea or a cup of coffee, or, I mean, we can have lunch together if you want. I don't know what your comfort level is. And keep it like that, right? Because everybody's different right now. So just say, if you're open to it, I'd love to. If you're not, that's cool too. But that tells them that you respect where they are on the fear spectrum, which also tells them you're going to respect their real estate needs and desires too. That's a pretty big deal. And so lean into your humanity. And if people are uncomfortable meeting you right now, they're not ready for in-person stuff, what could you do for them next? Well, you could set up a FaceTime call. You could set up a Zoom call. You could send a little Cersei over to their house. And I love sending little handwritten notes, right? Because people need to feel special. And if y'all have never seen them before, let me find one on my desk here. They're called, oh, golly, what's that called? Thoughtfuls. They come in these little boxes. I should probably cut my background off so y'all could see what I'm showing you. Or as the young people say, pick up what I'm putting down and not what I'm supposed to say. All right, let me turn off my virtual camera. Now you can see my office. So they're called Thoughtfuls, and they're these little tiny things in a box, and they have like a little happy phrase in them. So this is my smile box, and I have thanks. I still have some Christmas ones. They're called Holiday Cheer, and I've got Be Happies. So you could stick these in a note card, and it's just a little something extra. That's the kind of thing that makes everybody happier. And I like to do it after I've called somebody on the telephone. My screen is still up. Oh, yeah, it's just over here on my face, Deborah. You have to look at my face to see the box of Thoughtfuls. And by the way, this one says, these are my smile cards. It says, you can change everything with one good feeling. I would imagine that's true. So think about your humanity. Remember, if we're thinking about our business as neighbors instead of leads, we're going to lead with our hearts and with our empathy before we lead in business. We talked about the 1 to 10. Now I'm always going to ask them this when I'm asking about that. Do you want to meet me for a cup of coffee? Is that in your comfort zone right now? If they say yes, I'm always going to ask them, what's your favorite restaurant? Because maybe they have somewhere they'd like to patronize. So where could you go? Sometimes we all have our favorite places, right? And we're realtors. We love to control things. You are a bunch of control freaks. If you're always taking people to your spot, that's great for your spot. But right now we're in a space where everybody's trying to keep somebody else alive and keep them afloat. So now they're willing to meet you. Where do they want to meet you? What's your favorite? And if they say their favorite is not reopened yet or whatever, you just write it down. It's on my intake sheet. I'll ask them the favorite and jot it down, because if they don't want to meet me or we can't work it out, I can send them $20 to their favorite restaurant. And what does that tell people? That you heard them and you said, you mentioned this place. I looked it up, looks good on Yelp. I wanted to help keep them in business. And so I bought you a little gift card. And so maybe we'll use that for lunch sometime in the next 6 months. There's so many ways to prospect that aren't gross and icky. And it's not you buying the business, that's you listening. So when I'm back to my buyers here, I'm jumping all over the place because obviously this is the first time I've done this particular set. So y'all have to give me a little bit of grace and forgiveness, because I know you will. When I'm talking to that buyer, let me go back over here to my buyer intake sheet. In the middle section, I'm asking them, what do they want, right? So how many bedrooms, bathrooms? Do y'all need a garage? What's the skinny? I always ask them, what's the one special thing you'd like to find? The one. Can't promise I'll find it. Can't promise that any of this is out there. But if we found it, what's the one thing you really would like to find? The magic of this is, first of all, you're asking a question nobody else is. And my buyers tell me all the time, they're like, nobody's asked me that. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I mean, I like houses. Houses have to feel good. And I always warn them, I'll know which one you're buying because your eyes will start sparkling because you know how buyers are. But the other thing that happens, friends, is that if you showed 8 houses and then you stumble up into one that has the one thing that they wanted so badly to find barn doors on the master closet. And then they walk in and they're like, oh, ah, you found it. You found barn doors on the master closet. Ah. It's huge. But if you never find it, you never find it because you didn't promise anything. But it can really elevate you as their listener person when you find it, especially if you walk back to the master and you spot it and you're like, y'all, come here into the master. Come here, check it out. They love to feel your energy. They love to feel your excitement. And it's really important. So I'll mention here as well, as we move into a wildly different market, you're going to have conversations with people that are unemployed or have been unemployed. And we know the unemployment help is running out soon. And by the way, the PPP, you have 18 days left to apply. So if you have not, you can actually get the PPP money from PayPal, from Cabbage, it starts with a K, from local banks. We found out only 5% of realtors have even tried to apply for it. So if you are not on the PUA, you can apply for PPP. And this is not the same thing as EIDL. If you have more need for that information, I did a whole video interview with Eric Kistner from Tennessee yesterday. It's on my Facebook. I'll remind you of that. But I was thinking of it because we have so many clients that are okay right now, but they're stretched because things aren't right. And so if you talk to somebody and they're stressed out about their house payment, just ask them, have you checked out payment options? Because sometimes they don't ask. You know why? Because their pride's in the way. And you're not going to ask them, so when's the last time you made a payment? Because that feels aggressive. You're like, well, have you checked out your payment options with the bank? And you're like, what do you mean? You're like, well, a lot of banks are providing opportunity to work things out. What kind of loan do you have? Who's your lender? Do you want me to help and help you find some questions to ask? I mean, maybe we can keep you in this house and we don't have to sell it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is find a way not to take a listing. And also you want to think about this with your buyers. I'm finding out that more and more buyers are not looking at different types of loans. They're looking at one loan when maybe the best thing for them is a 15-year fixed instead of a 30, or maybe they want to do 10% down instead of 20 because their next goal was to buy an investment property, and you can help them look at leverage if they can work out the numbers. So I start that process with, well, have you checked out payment options? So with the buyer, they say, what does that mean? There's different kinds of loans. I'm just curious, as when you got pre-approved, how much did the lender talk to you about different kinds of loans? Because I like to check everything out. Now, as I'm making all these phone calls, talking to buyers, maybe they get hung up and don't like something, or one of my buyers that was in the process of going under contract and got furloughed because that's still going on, and they were just like a little deflated balloon. They were beat up. And I said, well, you want me to just check on you periodically? And she said, will you? I said, yes, I'll just check on you. We're good. I'll still be here. So asking permission to check on somebody is really important. I find that a lot of things in realtor world would be better if we asked permission first. And people love being asked because it gives them the ability to say, well, actually, no, we're done. I'll mention to you as well, if somebody says no, I'll honor that. I'll take them out of my system, delete the paper, take them off, period. I'm not going to sneak back in a year later and say, I know you told me not to call you, but I am because I need a sale. And I think that's gross, because if they don't want me to follow up, they probably don't want me to follow up. And this is the same thing if I'm talking to somebody who said, well, I really would like to go to lunch with you, and I was really wanting to go to my favorite place, but I'm having chemo or whatever is going on. They can't meet me. I say, well, may I just check on you periodically? And if it's somebody I know well enough, I say, may I put you on my prayer list? And some of y'all are on my prayer list without permission, so just, you know that. But I love asking permission for things because people need to know that you care enough to give them some control over the way that you're going to conduct business. So when I'm thinking about these phone calls and all of the how are yous and the may I check on yous and finding buyers and finding sellers, I'm going to tell y'all, as a profession, we spend way too much time and money and energy in online leads that are angry when you call them because they don't want to talk to 8 agents and their number got sold and they hate that. What you need to be doing is calling these people in your phone. And people in your phone should have also saved you in their phone. This should be a two-way street. that they see your name come up and they want to answer it. So the rule in my office and with my team is pretty simple. I don't ask anybody for an hour of power because y'all, nobody's going to do an hour of power. Realtors have ADD and they don't want to do anything for an hour, especially not prospect, because realtors hate to prospect. So we just have a set rule. Make one phone call at 8 a.m. One phone call to somebody you know. And what happens is when you call somebody that you know and you like every day, you'll start calling 2, and then you'll call 3. And for those of y'all that need to know the math, just know that if you are going to call people, you're going to sell more houses. You won't need to buy a bunch of leads online, because if 10% of your outbound calls turn into business, because that's the empirical data over 60 years, 10% of outbound calls, if that's going to bring you business, it's 1 call a day. Now, you see my girl here has that same characteristic as slide number 1, a smile on her face. You will have more success making phone calls if people can hear your energy. Let's see. Oh, there's a great question over here. I'll jump right to that after I finish with my 1 a day comment here. There's a lot of realtors that want to save their phone calls for 10 a.m., 11 a.m., 5 p.m. The reason I use 8 a.m., y'all, is because their day is starting, but it is not deep in the weeds yet. And I can get them, but it's going to be for a limited amount of time because they're going to have their day start. And so it's respectful of their time and also makes it get out of the way. If you wait until 10 o'clock, you're going to have gotten busy and forgotten, and so will they. If you wait until 5 o'clock, you're exhausted, and so are they. And so you get a different somebody at 8 a.m. than you get at 5 p.m. And for those of you on this call that are night owls and you're like, Leigh Brown, I ain't calling anybody at 8 o'clock because that is barely my first cup of coffee. You know, you have a lot of impact if you call somebody with a cup of coffee in your hand and you say, hey, I was having my first cup of coffee and for whatever reason, Apple had your name on my contact list and I thought I'd say, hey. Then you drink a cup of coffee with me. What you drinking over there? Oh, you got hot tea? I got coffee today. So you talk for 5 minutes. That's all it is. We make this so hard and we make this uncomfortable because you're calling people that don't like you and don't know you. Call the ones who do. And by the way, when you call that past client and activate the reticular activation, so now they remember who you are, they remember you're a realtor, and they get on a Zoom call for work and somebody says, I'm having to move to Michigan. They're like, oh, call my girl. I just talked to her this morning. You won't get that up if you didn't talk to them right then because they're paying attention to other things. They hear real estate when they've heard your voice. The question I'm being asked over here is, with my 3 lenders, what if the buyer says, do I need to apply to all 3? Will that not have negative impact on my credit? Well, one thing to know about credit scoring is that when there is a mortgage pull on your credit, that's a different kind of pull than a credit card pull. They're different types. So when you have that person getting a pull by one lender, within a time frame, they can check as many lenders as they want because the credit bureaus had to make that adjustment so people could shop. But I will tell my buyers, I'm like, you don't have to apply to all 3. I want you to see who you like first, because you're picking a lender that you can feel good about the relationship, because they're going to ask you some personal, intimate questions. They're going to call you and have you turn over all your personal information. They're going to be the ones that are going to be taking money out of your bank account for 30 years. I think you ought to like them. So when you're talking to them on the phone, see who's asking you pertinent questions and who feels comfortable and likable, and apply with them. They can all give you an ish quote before you apply. So I always tell people be cautious on that, but you can actually shop your loan. So thank you for asking that question. And let's see what's over here. Bruce is asking, what CMA platform do I use when I do a quick CMA for someone requesting a quick value who's maybe thinking of listing in 6 to 12 months? Bruce, I am an old person who does not like to use any of the CMA platform. I go to MLS with the address and I pull comps. And I will sit there and I will hand write out my adjustments based on the ish for their house, because obviously I haven't seen it. And I can get into a range right there. And so what I will tell that person who says they're probably listing in 6 to 12 months, I say, all I can do without seeing your house is ish it. And I can ish it from 330 to 370. If you want me to narrow that down, I'm glad to come out to the house and help you get a better number, but that's ish where we are right now. For the record, never ever land on a hard number because markets are fluid. And I will tell you as well that if you are somebody who prices a house per square foot, then you are dead to me, because we have got to make sure that stops happening in our profession. I blame Zillow for it, because that stupid Zestimate is built on the AI and it's built on the dollars per square. And we all know dollars per square is not the be all end all. And when I talk to a seller that says, but that's per square, I'm like, look, per square means that a 3,000 square foot house that sits on 0.1 next to the same 3,000 square foot house with a 4-car attached garage on 1 acre with a pool and outdoor fireplace and a screen porch would be worth the same thing, because they both have 3,000 square feet. And then they go, oh, you got to educate people, y'all. And it's usually a little quick anecdote that does it. Barbara is asking what Marco Polo is. Well, Barbara, welcome to another time suck in your life. It's a social media thing, and Ennis is all over this, by the way. I think he was the first one to send. Ennis Antoine sent me a Marco Polo, and my friend Bill Flagg did up in New Jersey, and I thought it was spam when they sent it at first. It looks like a beach ball. And what it is a video texting platform. And so if you're somebody that video text people, then if I click on my boy Jeff Kahn right here, all of our video chat history is here. And I really love this with clients, because I can send them a quick response to their question, and they can save it and watch it again, and they can respond with just start, stop, start, stop. And I'll say, hey, Jeff, I'm using you as an example with a whole bunch of amazing realtors in Atlanta. And so this is for all of them. So if they say hello to you, you say, hey, back from Lubbock. And then I click stop, and then it's sent, right? And it's that simple. It's fast. It's so easy. And what Jeff did, and this is kind of cool, when he has somebody call him, he would look them up on Marco Polo and see if they were here, because he's a millennial and he has a lot of friends who are using it as their exclusive messaging platform, because it's kind of off the beaten path, and some people like that. So anyway, add it to your platform, and what I do is I look it up with their cell phone number and see if they're in there, and I've added them. And so I've actually seen the faces of some of my clients here recently, which has been nice. So that's Marco Polo. Nicole is asked, Nicole Wright, honey, one of my past clients' name is Nicole Wright. I love her to pieces. Says, do I use a customer transaction platform, and which one do I recommend? Okay, so look, I am the worst person to ask for this.
Sounds great. I will say hello from Lubbock.
I forgot to turn the sound off. Did y'all hear that? So Jeff responded that quickly by video. He clicked start stop. So anyway, I don't use a customer transaction platform. We currently have just checklist, right? I need paper. So I will tell you right now, I am not a paperless agent. I will never be a paperless agent, because I am a kinesthetic learner. If I write it down, it's there forever. And so we have checklists we have printed in the office, and we use those. And then of course we have some stock emails that we send out. I have heard good things about the one that's in DocuSign, which is Transaction Room, but frankly, I'm not there right now. And plus, I have a lot of privacy data and security things online right now, especially consider how much Zoom got hacked. So if it's got a customer's numbers and social security and stuff in it, I keep it offline, and we shred everything at the end of the year. So I'm sorry I don't have better answers for you there, but I'm an old person. Anybody else have a question you want to ask? If you're thinking of that, type it in. I'm sorry this was a little bit out of order, because obviously as I start going down rabbit holes, I start thinking of things in a different way. But all my free stuff is over here. If you didn't get it in the other 3 sessions, text the word Kicktail to 555-888. The biggest thing you're going to want there is the buyer and seller intake sheets to help you get organized and asking questions. And I just want to point one quick thing out to you here, because there's a lot of talk right now about fair housing, which is a shame that we have to talk about fair housing, but the world's not perfect, so we talk about it. If you want to be the best proponent possible for fair housing, then get busy about asking consistent questions of everybody that you service. Because if somebody calls you and says, hey, I'm thinking about buying a house and my credit score is 500 because they already checked it, what do most realtors do? They blow them off. They're like, can't help you, whatever, done. And I get it. You're paid when you sell, and they may never get around to it. But I'll tell you that if you treat every single person who calls you, even with a 500 credit score, with that respect and honor, and give them a little bit of enthusiasm, y'all, half of the world is beat down, fearful, and sad right now. What if you're the encourager they needed? And you said to her, may I ask you a few questions? She's going to say yes, because she obviously has this dream. And you say, you tell me your credit score is a 510. Tell me where it came from. And she'll tell you where it came from. may I connect you to one of my lenders who can put a plan together for you? If you'll do the work, we'll help show you the way. Y'all, that's our job as realtors. Your job is not to blow people off because they're not there. It is to say, I can help you if you'll do the work. You can't lead everybody to home ownership. Not everybody wants it. Not everybody's going to get there financially. That's okay. Your job as the realtor, show the path and then be the encourager. Because if that girl who called you needs a boost every 6 months, what if you call her every 6 months? You put it in your little Google calendar. Hey, just checking on you. Remember, I asked you to work on that little list. If you want to buy a house, I'm here to be your mama hen and poke you a little bit. And if she says, don't call me, I'm never buying a house. You want to talk to me about that? No. All right, fine. Then delete her, right? But most of the time you'll run into somebody that says, oh yeah, I mean, we're thinking about it and hadn't gotten there yet. You're like, it's okay. I'm here. Anytime you need something, I got 12 years left on my mortgage. I'll be here. That's always my favorite line to use. I tell people I have a mortgage myself and it makes them feel less pressure. Y'all, if it took somebody 3 years to get to home ownership and you had to call her every 6 months and spend 2 minutes on the phone with her, are we not willing to spend 12 minutes over the course of 3 years to be somebody's encourager? I think we can. And I think that's what changes in your life when you start thinking about all of your incoming calls as humans and you start getting super professional about the questions that you ask. And then suddenly fair housing goes away, because if we take care of everybody in the same professional way and we focus on opening doors, no matter what somebody's situation is today, so that they have a chance in the future, it can change a lot of stuff. We can change a lot of stuff. Let's see. Shayla is asking, what scripts do I study from? Well, honey, when I got into business 20 years ago, I went to Howard Brenton Star Power University. That was the best training we ever had in real estate. Howard's dead now and been dead for over a decade. But if you're ever on eBay or you find some old realtor retiring, if they have any Star Power stuff, buy it, beg, steal it, whatever they'll do for you. And mine are, actually, they're not in here right now. I have a new agent who's got them with her because they don't go old. Most of mine, I started with somebody or I nurtured on myself. And a lot of the ones I gave you today are just the things that I've learned over time. And so take this. I'll give you all the slides if you, I just recorded, so you can get this from Janaea and from Barry, and you can go back and screenshot out the ones you want. But the key to it though, and I know I'm over by a couple of minutes because Janaea's got her camera on, but she loves me and she'll give me a second, is accountability and practice. You won't make any of this sound natural if you're just saying it because you read it somewhere. So Shayla, you and Shelby be friends, and Lillian, you be friends with Nicole, and y'all call each other on the phone and practice being a buyer and then being a seller. You'll get good at this. And then when a buyer or seller call, you'll be amazing, because in realtor association world, if we would just remember that we're a profession of abundance, we can make everything better. So with that, thank you for having me back again. I can't wait to see y'all in person at some point, because I still got to figure out where I'm taking my family on vacation. Maybe we'll just come on down to Atlanta and come see what, there ain't nothing to see right now. Everything's still closed, right? Is the aquarium open back up?
I don't know yet, but I want you to answer one other question. Someone asked about coaching. Do you do personal coaching?
I do coaching, and I'm a little weird there because I do, actually, Shayla, change it to all panelists and attendees. Shayla is looking for an accountability partner. Change your 2 lines, Sugar, to all panelists and attendees, because I love that you put yourself out there like that. You're my new favorite. So I don't believe in coaching plans that make y'all sign up for a year-long, giant $1,000 a month stuff for phone calls you're going to start avoiding and things you won't do because you're realtors and I love you. All of mine are a la carte. So my coaching clients book an hour when they need it. And for most of my clients, it's 3 to 4 hours a year. They just need a kick in the ass and they need somebody to talk to and talk them through things. And so that's how I do coaching. So if you want information, hit me up on any of my social channels and I can set you up and talk to you a little bit further about what you're looking for and see if I can help.
And so I just want to say thank you for 2 nuggets that I picked up. One, I have a active adult community listing, so I'm going to go to the newspaper. I didn't even think about that, so thank you. And then also, you're absolutely right. I had a young lady call me, first-time home buyer, and she wasn't able to get qualified because she's an independent contractor, but guess what? She has cash. So I did not discount her, you know, because of that, but she said, well, I'll just use my cash that I really didn't want to use because I really want to buy a home. So anyway, just wanted to say everything you said is absolutely right. And we can't thank you enough for joining us again, and we look forward to having you back. So thank you again, everyone, and thank you, Leigh.
Thank you. Y'all say thanks to your volunteer leadership and your staff, and I hope to see you in person in New Orleans. Hope it holds together. So we'll see you soon.
All right. Have a good day.